Good morning, all of you. Dear students, before starting this lecture, I would like to give one notice. Students, all students will inform you that after completing this topic change the voice, we have decided to start with the textbook, first poetry section. So it is compulsion for you to have textbook at the time of attending that lecture. So textbooks are available in the market, so buy it as early as possible. Thank you. Now see on the blackboard, change the voice. In the last lecture, we have completed that some points. Now see here, we have completed the first that point, 5 steps which are very important at the time of converting active into passive. In that, first one, identify the subject, verb and object. When we convert active voice into passive voice, first we identify subject, verb and object. Then we interchange the places of subject into object and object into subject. Third one, use of to be according to the tense of the subject, the tense of the sentence and the new subject. And here change the V1, V2 form into V3. Next one, use preposition by before subject. Now these are the 5 steps which are very important at the time of converting active into passive. Now let's see here students. In the last lecture, we discussed that active into passive when active voice has two objects. When active voice has two objects, now here the sentence, they call me Mother Earth. In this sentence, there are two objects. Here they is subject, call V1. This sentence is into simple present tense. Here me, it is indirect object, and Mother Earth direct object. Why we call that me, this pronoun, as an indirect object? When we ask question using whom to that main verb, the answer is that indirect object. Whom do they call Mother Earth? Whom do they call Mother Earth? The answer is me. Me, here this preposition is indirect object. Next one. When we ask question with using what to that main verb, what do they call me? The answer is Mother Earth. When we ask question to that main verb we using what, we get direct object. When we ask question to that main verb with using whom, we get that answer indirect object. Now see, observe these two. Indirect object is a personal pronoun. Indirect object is a personal pronoun and it comes into the middle part of that sentence. And generally, direct object is in the last part of that sentence and it's a non-living thing. Now it's very simple. At the time of converting this type of that active voice with having direct and indirect object, at that time there are two answers of passive. There are two sentences of passive. The first one, we convert this pronoun means indirect object into the place of subject means me into I. Which is the tense of the sentence? This sentence is into simple present tense. That's why I use here am. Then V3 form, here call, called, called. That's why V3 form is called. Then direct object and then by plus them. The first answer is I am called Mother Earth by them. And the second one, that direct object comes into the place of subject, that Mother Earth is called to me by them. Means here this point tells us that when the active voice has two objects, direct object and indirect object. How can you find out the direct object and indirect object? Now let's see. Ask question to that main verb with using what we get direct object. Ask question with using whom we get indirect object. Okay. Then when we convert active into passive, at that time the here active, the subject of active voice, subject of active voice becomes the object of passive. The subject of active voice becomes the object of passive. The subject is I, hereby me. In the last lecture we have discussed this rule. When the subject of active voice becomes the object of passive, I by me, she by her, he by him, they by them, we by us. Okay. Now, when the sentence means active voice has two objects, when objects are two, indirect object and direct object, at that time the object of active voice becomes the subject of passive. The object of active voice becomes the subject of passive voice. Now the object is here me into I, then him into he. Okay, then her into she, us into we, you into, there is no change. Okay, it into, once again there is no change. Then into they. Now see, when the active voice has two objects, now we have seen that two objects, personal pronoun and also, yes, non-living thing, direct object and indirect object. At that time, when the indirect, here we mention, the indirect object of active voice becomes the subject of passive. When indirect object means personal pronoun me, we change it into I at the time of converting it into passive. Him into he, her into she, us into we, you into you, it into it, them into they. This is also very important at the time of converting active into passive. So please remember this properly. At the time of converting indirect object into passive. Now see here. He gives me a pen. He gives me a pen. At that time, here he subject gives V1 me a pen. These two are objects. Here me indirect object. When we ask question to that main verb with using whom, it's a indirect object. Okay, and a pen is a direct object. Now the answers are here two of passive voice. Now first one is that when that indirect object comes into the place of subject, the active voice, the structure of active voice, subject, verb plus object. Object comes into the place of subject, then it's the general structure to be formed according to the tense of the sentence. Then use V3 form plus by plus subject. Now there are two answers. The first one, here using indirect object into the place of subject, that me into I, which I given you already. I. The tense of the sentence, here the verb form is into simple present tense. That's why which to be form we use here, I am. V3 form, give, gave, given. I am given. Then direct object, a pen. I am given a pen. Then use preposition by and then object. Here he into him. Means the first answer is I am given a pen by him. The second answer is here object, direct object into the place of subject, a pen. Which to be found is used here, is, a pen is. V3 form, given, a pen is given. Then at the time of writing indirect object into the passive voice, use here to. Here to me. A pen is given to me by him. In this way, we convert this type of that sentence active voice into passive. When the active voice has two objects, at that time we use this method at the time of converting it into passive. Now students, here we have generally discussed about some basic rules which are used at the time of converting active into passive. Now it's very important that you remember some things, some points, that when we convert active into passive or passive into active, there is no change into the meanings of the sentences. Okay, there is no change in the meaning. And also the second one, when we convert active into passive and or passive into active, don't change the tense of the sentence. Yeah, please try to remember, this is a very important thing, is that don't change the tense of the sentence. Find out first the tense of that active voice, and this tense you use at the time of converting it into passive. Now this is very important. Then we see the active into passive according to the tense. But before discussing on this topic, generally, how can you find out this sentence has active and this sentence has passive voice? The structure is subject, verb and object. It's the structure of active voice. And passive voice, here object plus to be plus V3 plus by plus subject. Now, how can you find out that this sentence has passive or either active voice? Generally see the structure of passive voice. Here object plus to be form means either am, is, are, either was, were, either have, either shall, will. Okay, plus either have, has, been, being. This one is that structure, either be, then V3 plus by plus subject. Now some sentences of passive voice, sometimes that by plus subject will not be used. At that time, how can you find out this sentence has passive? First one object, then to be form, then being, be, then V3 means you have to point out that thing that to be formed, and after that to be formed there is B3 form, you generally find out that this sentence is into passive voice. Now here we see the active into passive according to the tense. Active into passive according to the tense. Active into passive according to the tense. And this tense topic you have studied earlier, that's why it's very easy for you to learn. When active voice is into simple present tense. First one, when active voice is into simple present tense. What I say? When active voice is into simple present tense. At the time of converting active into passive, the following structure is used. First one, the structure of active voice is subject plus verb. We add s or es to that main verb plus object. Okay. Now see here the structure of simple present tense. Subject, verb, adding s or es plus object. It's the simple present tense. Then at the time of converting this type of the structure into passive, object comes into the place of subject. Then this one is into simple present tense. That's why this to be form we use in simple present tense. Now you have to learn in present tense. In present tense we use am, is, are. Okay. In past tense which to be form we use here was, were. And in future tense here we use shall or either will. Now see here which to be formed we use here and, is, are plus P3 which we call past participle of main verb plus by plus subject. Now see, first of all find out the tense of the sentence, and if the given sentence means given active voice is into simple present tense, the following structure is used at the time of converting it into passive. Object plus an, is, are plus B3 plus by plus subject. First example, she sings a song. She sings a song. Now in this sentence, here she is subject. Sings here verb. Adding s. And you know very well that if the subject is into third person singular, we added s or es to the main verb. That's why here sings. Subject plus here sings verb and a song object. Now at the time of converting it into passive, object comes first. Here a song. Which to be form is used here after that song? Am, is, are. Here if the given object into the place of subject, when it is into singular form, is used. Is, this to be form is used. When it is into plural form, you use are. But here is a song. A song is a singular form. That's why we use is. A song is. Now the next step here is main verb is sings. Now sing, sang, sung. You know very well that subject here verb B1, B2, B3 and B4. Yes, you also practiced that these four forms of that verb. B1 means main verb. Here sing or sings. Then B2 sang. Then V3, sung. And V4 is singing. Now we use here V3 form. A song is sung by she into her. In this way, when active voice is into simple present tense, we at the time of converting it into passive, we use this structure, and the answer is a song is sung by her. Now next one. The second sentence here, that people speak English all over the world. Second sentence, people speak English all over the world. Now this sentence is into active voice. Why? Because this one, people, subject, speak V1 English all over the world. It's a English, here it's a object, and all over the world we call it predicate. It's called that predicate, and you have learned that sentence pattern: subject, verb, object, and predicate. And where here we use that predicate after V3 form in passive voice. Now see the answer. At the time of converting it into passive, your object is English. English. Now I take down that object comes into the place of subject, English. Now it is into once again singular form. That's why we use is. English is. Then speak. The V3 form of main verb speak is spoken. English is spoken. English is spoken. Then after V3 form, if the active voice has predicate, write down that. Don't forget it. Always remember, after V3, write down the remaining part of that sentence all over the world. All over the world. Our answer is English is spoken all over the world by people. In this way, we use the structure of simple present tense active into passive. English is spoken all over the world by people. Now let's see the third example and the last one, that number 3, active voice. The teacher teaches us grammar. The teacher teaches us grammar. Now see the teacher. What is it? It's the subject. Teacher is subject. Then teaches. Here V1. There are two objects. First one us, second one grammar. Here us indirect object, and when we find out, how we find out that it's a indirect object? When we ask question to the main verb with using whom, we get that answer, and grammar is a direct object. Now here our passive structure. The first answer is here us into we. Then indirect object is a personal pronoun. At the time of converting it into the subject, us into we, them into they, him into he. Here is us is indirect object at the time of converting it into we at the time of active into passive. Okay. Now here I take down the subject we, which is in plural form, and when the subject is in plural form, which to be form we use here? Am is are. Here we use are. We are. Then verb teach, teaches. We do taught, taught. Okay. We are taught. V3 form. What is it? Taught. We are taught. Then write down after that V3 direct object, grammar. We are taught grammar by the teacher. By the teacher. We are taught grammar by the teacher, and the second answer is here direct object into the place of subject, that grammar is taught. Then write down indirect object, and before that we use to. Grammar is taught to us by the teacher. In this way, when active voice is into simple present tense, we convert it into passive in this manner. And when the sentence means the given active voice has two objects, in this way we convert it into two answers in passive voice. Okay? I think you understand it very well. Simple present tense. Then we turn to the next tense, that present continuous tense. Means when active voice is into present continuous tense, the structure is here. Write down the second tense, present continuous tense. The present continuous tense. It's very simple. You have studied that the structure of present continuous tense. Subject plus which to be form we use here in present tense, am, is, are. Then we use verb ing, and then object. Subject plus am, is, are plus verb ing, which we call it V4, plus object. At the time of converting it into passive, object comes into the place of subject, then same to be form we use here. Because I say it's very important, at the time of converting active into passive or passive into active, there is no change in the tense of the sentence. Object plus am, is, are plus we use here V4 form. We call it V4 verb ing. That's why we use here that being. Okay, the ing form, and then plus we use that V3, V1 into V3 plus by plus subject. Now subject plus am, is, are plus we use here being. It's a V4 form, and verb plus ing. That's why we use first being, then V3 plus by plus subject. Then example, that we are washing the clothes. Okay. First example, we are washing the clothes. Now this sentence is into present continuous tense. Subject are, subject we, are to be formed. Then washing verb ing means V4, and the clothes object. Now it's into passive. Now object comes into the place of subject, the clothes. Now the clothes, this subject is into plural form. That's why we use are. The clothes are. Okay. Then we use being. B-I-N-G. Then we use V3 form. When we convert it into just ing form into being, that the remain member wash, we convert it into V3 form, wash into washed. The clothes are being washed by us. We into us. The clothes are being washed by us. Okay. The next example, the Ram is asking many questions. Ram is asking many questions. Ram is asking many questions. Here Ram is subject, is into to be form. Then asking verb plus ing, we call it V4, and many questions object. Now here passive voice is many questions. Many questions. Instead of yes, am, is, are, we use many questions. This one is the plural form, that's why we use are. Many questions are. Then it's the continuous tense, we use being. And main verb ask convert into V3, asked. Being asked. Many questions are being asked by Ram. Write down the same word Ram. Okay. In this manner our answer is many questions are being asked by Ram. Now see the last example of this tense is number 3. Number 3, I am collecting the stamps with my friends. I am collecting the stamps with my friend. Okay. Now see, this sentence has I here subject, am is to be form, collecting before, the stamp object, the stamps object, and with my friend predicate. The remaining part of the sentence which we take down after B3. Then here active into passive. First object comes into the place of subject. The stands. The stands is into plural form. That's why we use are to be verb. The stands are. Then we use being. Then B3 collect, collected, collected. B3 form collected. The stamps are being collected. Then write down the predicate with my friend, and then write down by plus subject are into me. Means our answer is the stamps are being collected with my friend by me. I think you understand it. When active voice is into present continuous tense, at the time of converting it into active into passive, the structure is subject plus to be plus verb plus ing plus object. We convert it into object comes into the place of subject. Then we use the to be form according to the given subject, am, is, are. Then use word being, B-I-N-G. Then use V3 form. Then either the active voice as predicate, write down it after the V3, then write down preposition by, and then subject into me. In this way, we also deal with that present continuous tense. Now see, the third tense is present perfect tense. And you know very well that the structure of present perfect tense the structure of present perfect tense is subject plus have has plus V3 plus object. Now see, present perfect tense. The structure is subject plus which to be forms we use here in present perfect have has. Helping verb subject have has plus V3 plus object. It's the structure of present perfect tense, and when the sentence has this structure of present perfect tense at the time of converting into passive object, then same helping verb have or either has according to the singular or plural form, then plus been, B-E-E-N. Now see, been plus V3 plus by plus subject. Now the example, they have asked me many questions. First example is they have asked me many questions. Now once again this sentence has two objects. First one, their day is subject, have to be formed, asked V3, then me indirect object and many questions. Direct object means there are two answers of passive voice. First we begin with indirect object comes into the place of subject, means me into I. Then, okay, we write down here object, then have or either has. When the subject is I, we use here have. I have. Then V3, before that V3 form, we use been. I have been. Then V3, yeah, same. Already the V3 form is used. Asked. I have been asked. Then write down direct object. Many questions. Many questions by them. By them. Here. Answer is I have been asked many questions by them, and the next second answer is direct object into the place of subject, many questions. Many questions. This is also in plural form. That's why we use have. Many questions have been asked. And after V3 form, we use that indirect object. But before that, we use to. Many questions have been asked to me by them. In this way, we use the structure when active voice has present perfect tense. The structure is object plus have had plus been plus V3 plus by plus subject. I think you understand it. Here present perfect tense active into passive, and when the active voice has two objects, it's very simple. Write down two answers. The next example is of present perfect tense. Someone has stolen my watch. The second one, someone has stolen my watch. First of all, identify the subject. Someone, it's the subject. Has to be formed. Stolen V3 and my watch is object. Here active. The sentence is into active. Then passive voice. My object comes into the place of subject, my watch. Here my watch, subject. Have or has, here it's a singular form, that's why we use has. Then we use been, has been. Then V3, already the V3 is given in the sentence, that stolen. Stolen. My watch has been stolen by someone. I think you have cleared that idea that at the time of active voice has present perfect tense, this structure is used at the time of converting it into passive. Okay. Now here we have completed simple present tense, present continuous tense and present perfect tense, and next one is that simple past tense, because in present perfect continuous there is no change the voice. Okay, present perfect continuous, no change the voice. Now once again I revise the structure, and it's very simple. If you understand the tense of the sentence properly, when you understand the structure or the tense of the sentence properly, then it is very important to find out the tense. It is very easy for you to convert it into active into passive. Now see, we have seen three structures: present tense, simple present tense, simple present. The structure of active voice is subject plus V1 plus object, then passive voice object plus which to be formed here am, is, are plus yes V3 plus by plus subject. Then present continuous tense, active voice, subject plus am, is, are plus verb ing plus object. It's a present continuous tense active voice. At the time of converting it into passive, object plus the same to be formed am, is, are plus we use being plus V3 plus by plus subject. Okay. Then present perfect tense, present perfect tense, active voice, subject plus have or either has according to singular or plural form plus V3 plus object. At the time of converting it into passive, object plus have, has. When this object is into plural form, use have. When this object is into singular form, use has. Plus being, B-E-E-N, plus V3 plus by plus subject. In this way, we have completed this present tense, means when active voice is into the different tense voice, the structure you will use at the time of converting it into passive. Then we start the simple past tense. Okay, simple past tense. Okay, with these words we stop here, but before completing this, we will think about the remaining part of that lecture, the remaining part of the topic change voice in the next lecture. But you write down, I give you one homework, you write down the structures of all the tenses. Remember it properly and write down simple present tense, the structure of active voice, then what is the structure of passive, then present continuous, the structure of active voice, then passive, then present perfect, structure of active and passive, and learn it properly. Okay, thank you.